Oh, we're going live?
Yeah, we're going live.
And you're going to just freestyle?
I'm here with Dominic. He's not, I don't have that many followers. I'm here with Dominic, and we're going to like sing. And yeah, Dominic is really cool. Follow her at Storyscape.
So I recently read and raved about Welcome to Lagos, an adventurous novel that follows these 5 characters as they journey to new possibilities in Nigeria's capital city. The story follows Chike, Yemi, 2 officers fleeing the army, and they are joined by Oma, Fine Boy, and Isoken, rounding out this cast of your average yet very entertaining civilians. When they get to Lagos, they make a room for themselves in an abandoned house where they end up crossing paths with the Minister of Education, Chief Sandayo, who is in the middle of fulfilling his political stereotype of corruption. But our traveling crew have different plans for this money. Now, what transpires is left for you to find out, but just let me say, leave your cynicism at the first page and go on this adventure that explores corruption, journalism, and the power of your civic duty. I got to hang out with Chibundu Anuzo as she wrapped up her US book tour in New York City, and we talked about what inspired this book and how she brought these characters together.
But I had a dream, and there were 2 soldiers in the dream, and they were given an order to kill people or to do something. You know, sometimes when you retell dreams in daylight, they don't make any sense, because these 2 soldiers also happened to be in a medieval castle and they were Nigerian. So when I woke up, it was very vivid, and I started writing down, these 2 soldiers, they're in a dream, they disobey an order. So the first thing I did obviously was like transplant them out of the medieval castle into a more recognizable place. And so I chose a real conflict that happened in Nigeria, which was conflict in the Niger Delta, which arguably to an extent hasn't gone away completely, but at the height of it anyway. So I transplanted it to that period. And then I thought, if they disobey an order, they're going to have to run away, because it's a capital offense in most armies to disobey an order. So they run away, and I think, okay, they need a big city to hide. And I sort of auditioned a few cities, and then I thought, okay, well, how about Kaduna, which is another big city, but it's in the north of Nigeria. And I don't know anybody in Kaduna. I'm going to be honest, like, the thoughts of
started research.
Exactly, that's just the truth. I thought, like, as always, I don't want to suffer for my art, I want to enjoy. I'm a Lagosian. We like, there's something you call jaye. It's like, we like enjoyment. So I was like, okay, the city I know the best in Nigeria is Lagos. So I said, no, and obviously Lagos is also a massive city. So it's a no-brainer for them to run away to Lagos and try to hide. And then the idea to add characters also kind of, I've been wanting to write a novel with a large cast of characters. So once I had my 2 soldiers at the beginning, I thought, okay, as they run away to Lagos, let's add. So it's kind of like obvious steps. So first of all, the first person that joins is a militant / freedom fighter, depending on your perspective. And it was obvious, let's have somebody that they're fighting against. So he joins the group. Then I thought, let's have somebody who is a civilian, who's caught up in the crossfire between the soldiers and the militants / freedom fighters. And then Isoke joins the group. And then they get to Yenagoa, the capital of Bayelsa. And then I thought, okay, let's have somebody else join them on the bus. And then, Oma's backstory appears. And so, yeah, they're all sort of escaping different things. And they're all running away to Lagos. And I guess that's how the story kind of started.
In the second part of the novel, each chapter begins with a newspaper clipping that really fascinated me. Ahmed Bukhari, the journalist who takes an interest in what Chike and his crew have stumbled upon, raises all these questions about journalism, accountability, and the idea of who we have to answer to in this world of my corruption is better than yours.
And so Ahmed, the character that runs the Nigerian Journal. So the Nigerian Journal is loosely based on a real newspaper that existed.
In Lagos?
Yes, called +234 Next. So now, that newspaper, I read it as a teenager. I moved to London, and I was looking for a lot of Nigerian content. It just happened, and then I used to read +234 Next almost every day. And the story behind 234 Next was it was founded by a man called Dele Olejide. who was based in America and actually won a Pulitzer for his work. And then he moved back to Nigeria to found a sort of socially crusading newspaper that would crusade against corruption, that would, bring kind of, as far as possible unbiased, ethical journalism, where journalists wouldn't take brown envelopes to write certain type of stories and all of that. And so it had all these kind of high ideals and high ambitions. And that newspaper failed, even though the quality of the work produced was very high. Ahmed is not the ideology there. First of all, he's not a journalist of that standing. He's more of somebody who has the ideals and wants to make that kind of newspaper without necessarily having the skills to make it successful. So yes, I guess I wanted his newspaper to be not next, but kind of roughly inspired by next, with kind of similar ideals. And also I think the way Nigerians interview is very interesting. First of all, the way the journalists ask the questions is very interesting. Again, let me know them. Tar or Nigerian journalists with the same brush. There are some that I've done really fantastic interviews with. But sometimes I've done an interview once and the guy's like, "Are you single?" I said, "Check. Is this a dating column or are you here to interview me about my book?" I was like, "You are so completely on point." Or when Nigerians are interviewed, especially, I had so much fun with it, even Chief Sanders interviewing the book, there's this sort of, how dare you ask me that question? And I was like, but you're in an interview. What do you think you're here for? You need to watch Obasanjo's Hard Talk interview.
Okay, is that what informed that?
Chief Sanders interview.
That scene had me rolling. I was like, but what is this man doing?
I watched that interview
and just laughed.
Before I wrote that scene. Because basically, Obasanjo in that interview, there's a question they asked him about his daughter, Iyabo Obasanjo, who had corruption allegations leveled against her. And he just bristled in his agbada and rose up. And he said, "Can you ask Bill Clinton that question? Can you ask Tony Blair? That look, Iyabo doesn't mean Iyabo is an adult. So if you have any questions to ask about corruption, go and ask Iyabo."
Will you accept responsibility for your son at the age of 21 for whatever he does? Now, don't ask me that type of question. I found it very insulting, with all due respect.
Now, the thing is, I spoke to my friend. He's a sort of Western trained journalist in the Western model.
Sure.
And he was like, "Oh no, that Obasanjo," because for him, sometimes an interview is kind of like combat.
Yeah.
So he said Obasanjo lost that interview because he lost control. He lost his temper. And so once you do that, you give the interviewer the upper hand. But watching it as a Nigerian, I was like, no, Obasanjo won. He told that man, "Look, man, who do you think you are? Don't ask me questions that you won't ask." Other world leaders. He's like, even if you're not going to give me that space, I am claiming that space, and I'm on the same stage as a world leader.
I understand
so you better give me the soft questions, because that's what you do when you interview the others.
But I think that is so fascinating, though, because I wouldn't think that what we have over here is any different. We do ask these salacious questions. We want to know if you're dating people. We want to know the gossipy stuff rather than knowing about the work or knowing about the important things, for lack of a better word. And maybe his pushback too makes me think, is there a default in journalism that could go across the global stage that we could all adhere to and be like, this is how you actually conduct an interview with politicians or public figures or whoever?
You know what? That's a good point, actually. Your local journalists here do ask your also local American politicians tough questions. But I suppose, again, it's the thing of, you have no right to put me on trial, in the sense that I'm not accountable to you. In the sense that the people that should be asking me these questions, even though the people that should be asking me these questions are Nigerian citizens, are the ones that I'm accountable to. And But at the same time, a lot of these politicians, the truth is that when they are asked these difficult questions in Nigeria, they evade them or they completely refuse to answer them. So sometimes you have to almost be brought to a foreign court of journalism to be tried. And it's the same thing with African dictators and the International Court, for example. But if you look at a politician like Charles Taylor, he shouldn't need to go to the International Court to be tried. He should have been tried and put in jail by Liberians.
Exactly. It's like this is in their jurisdiction. They should be able to have...
But it's the system of the world that sometimes these people cannot be held. It's disgraceful. Why am I going all the way to Charles Taylor? Let me bring it back home to Nigeria. Like a politician like James Buhari, who was convicted of corruption in England. He was tried in Nigeria and found not guilty on, I don't know if they had like 200 counts. It was ridiculous. He was found not guilty on every count. And so it is a sort of, it shouldn't be that for them to face justice, they have to go overseas to face that justice. So we, like Nigerians, we feel it's like a dual, we have national pride. So we're annoyed when these journalists take this tone. Our elites, almost this condescending tone. But at the same time, it's like, answer these questions at home, so nobody's asking you these questions. Answer these questions and be accountable to the people you're supposed to be accountable to. So you don't go on CNN and, they'll be asking you these embarrassing questions.
At its core, the novel takes a deep look at corruption and how easy it is to participate in it, whether through our complaints and despair or through our active participation to get while the getting is good. I enjoyed this line the most. Stop complaining about this country, do something. Tell me about this inspiration of this, the essence of that sentence.
Okay, so two things. So the thing about complaining, where 2 or 3 Nigerians are gathered, there is whinging and moaning about politics. Now look, as in, you just have to say, just sigh and
in Liberia too.
Just sigh and go, our president is now Buhari. Just go, Buhari, the place was scatter, economy, politics, this is happening in the Niger Delta, this is happening in the North.
Talk. I know it.
And the thing is, so I had a very, very brief exchange with a Nigerian, really very brief exchange with a Nigerian sort of civil society leader. And so I did the whole thing about, is Nigeria ever going to change and all of that, etc. This was when I was, 22. No right to be cynical because I've not even tried to do anything about it. I'm already just inheriting the cynicism. And, he said that, what good does cynicism do? What does it build? And, that statement has, till tomorrow, it goes around in my mind that, what use, this is cynicism, what use is it? We've tried it for so long, it's not going to change, How has it helped us? And I've been thinking more about being hopeful realists. So it's not that there are no problems. We're not living in some sort of la-la land and saying these problems don't exist. That's the realist side of it. But it's that we are hopeful realists, we're optimistic realists, that we're going to try to change this thing. We've studied the problem and we don't want to underestimate the problem. But at the same time, we're not going to deny that we have abilities, we have intellect, and we can try. And with Welcome to Lagos, I wanted to explore just the idea that corruption is not a superstructure floating above all of us. Corruption is individuals. Corruption is individuals' decisions.
Exactly.
Now, the power of the system is that it is true that the system makes it easier for people to be corrupt than not to be. So let's say you have to work 1% to be corrupt. You have to work 75% not to be corrupt because there are people actually penalizing you or trying to penalize you for doing the right thing. But at the same time, it is possible. I don't like to remove human agency from the systems that we see that, it's just this way. Yes, the systems make it easier for bad behavior than for good. But there's still an element of human agency. And the thing is, corruption is people. It's individuals making these decisions. And sometimes you meet these people and they're nice. They're pleasant, because at the same time, the reason why the maternal mortality rate, for example, is so high in Nigeria, the reason why we don't have constant electricity, all these things are related to individual acts of corruption that have solidified into the system. It's related to people who should be investing the money in power, pocketing it. People who should be investing the money in healthcare, pocketing it. But the thing is, these people, why they can sleep at night is, first of all, you're not directly confronted with the consequences of your actions. So like, it's not as if they're stealing the money and thinking, as I take this $1 million, 100 mothers are going to die in childbirth. Because, they're not dying, like these people, they rationalize their actions to themselves. They are also good people in their eyes. They give to charity, that's another thing, They won't build the system, but they'll do individual acts of patronage.
But what you said earlier, I was going to say about cynicism, Maya Angelou said something where the problem with a young cynic is that they go from knowing nothing to believing nothing. And so, what's the point after that when you're like living your life and you do want to have this realistic hope? You want to be, contributing citizen, whatever it is, that just to actually feel as if you could do something.
Yeah, that's the thing, because that's the thing with cynicism. Then it means you don't do anything.
You just accept it. It's just like it'll be like this tomorrow too. So it's just, you just despair. It's just the root of despair. For Welcome to Lagos, is there anything that you want people, when they read the book, to walk away feeling, or to have left and said, I'm a changed person, or anything?
Well, so the book wasn't originally called Welcome to Lagos.
What was it called?
I'm not telling you. It was called something
Why
else.
would you set me up for that?
It was called something else. And I always joke, my family members are, they're blunt, verging on rude. I just prefer rude, but blunt is more polite. And so I sent it to my sister to read. And she read it and she enjoyed it, but she said, I think the current title is a bit flat, I think he can have a title with a bit more zing. And I was like, whatever man, you come up with the title. So in the course of a conversation, she said, how can all these things happen in a novel? How can you have a politician? How can you have two soldiers who deserted? How can you have all this going on in the same novel? And I said, well, anywhere else it might be implausible, but in Lagos, anything can happen. Everything is possible in Lagos. So she goes away and she comes back and she says, why don't you call it Welcome to Lagos? And I was like, that's a rubbish title. But the reason why I had such like a violent reaction, like no, was because it felt so like overarching. It felt like, who am I to call a novel Welcome to Lagos? And it felt like the kind of title that a documentary would make out from, New York or London or Paris or wherever. They'll travel to Lagos, for 3 days. They'll stay in their hotel for 2 days. On their last and final day, they'll take their camera, walk around in the 1 mile radius of their hotel, and they'll call the resulting work and documentary Africa, the true story. And then I thought, why is it that some people have confidence when they move around the world, and no matter what culture they transplant themselves, they can tell a sort of definitive narrative and story about the place. But me, who I'm actually from the place, I have all this trepidation and I have all this wariness. And it's true that you should approach with humility that this is a complex subject. This is a subject that I can never tell a definitive story on. Because there are many different Lagoses. But this is Lagos by Chibundu Onuzo. And I am a Lagosian, and I have
the right
to tell a grand overarching narrative if I want to, if I so choose to. So the book definitely grew to fill the title. When the title changed, I was like, this book needs to expand. And one of the things I wanted to do was to show different entrances and exits to the city. So I have the 5 characters. They come into Lagos by road, which is how many people, because Lagos people is a magnet not just for West Africa, but the whole of Africa. People are coming for economic opportunities, so they come by road. And when you come in by road, the infrastructure in my village, some houses, maybe the tallest house in my village, 2 stories, 3 stories, not a lot of flashing lights or street lights and all of that. And I stayed there for a week. and traveled back into Lagos by road. And the level of infrastructure was shocking. Like, it just felt like there's so much noise. There are billboards everywhere. There are flyover bridges. There are bridges. There's moving billboards with like flashing text. I was just like, oh my gosh, I get it why everybody is flocking from rural Nigeria to come to Lagos, because oh my, this place is like nothing, it's like nothing elsewhere in Nigeria, But if you're coming into Lagos by air, that's a more privileged traveler. And if you're coming from, a European capital or an American capital, coming from Europe, a lot of times, what you then see is everything that Lagos is not. So when you're coming from rural Nigeria, all you see are the opportunities, like, I'm going to blow up, I'm going to become rich in this city. But when you're coming from elsewhere, like Europe, America, what you then see is what Lagos is not. And from the airport, you get into the city and you're like, oh, this airport is not like Heathrow Airport. How can they only have 2 carousels in an international airport? Then you get out and you see potholes and you're like, the roads are not like the roads. And all you see is what is not. And you can't see any of the opportunities there. You can't see any of the possibilities there. All you see is almost a sort of negation of the place. And depending on what baggage you bring to Lagos,
that's a good point.
That's how you perceive Lagos. And I'm very interested in showing different perspectives, which is why I have my journalists come from London, and their perspective is like, oh, this place, once we step out of the street, they're going to rob us. It's like, people get robbed everywhere, People are making it here.
This book restored my faith in humanity in a lot of ways, and I loved what Chibundu said about the baggage that we bring with our perspectives as we enter into new spaces. Just a little wisdom to carry with you wherever you go. I had such a lovely time with Chibundu. We talked a lot, so clips of our conversation can be found on Facebook, and I'll share them in the newsletter, which goes out every Monday morning, so find the links below to subscribe for more. I can't recommend this book enough, and if you've read it, definitely leave comments down below, as I'd love to keep talking about this book. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember to read or be read, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
So, it's time for me to stop telling people what year I was born. I moved to London when I was 14. Yes. I don't really have much of a sub story because I was only 3 black people in my school, but there are worse things that can happen to you, so just moving swiftly on.
I'm gonna go up. Keep going. Welcome to Lagos.
Keep going.
Come on to Lagos. To Lagos.
But let's try to do some harmonize. We're actually a band. I want to keep going just for us, even after the
we are a band.
We are actually a band.